Hi everyone, this is Sereno Sky again, and I'd like to read to you the next chapter, which is chapter 7. I hope you've been enjoying the listening so far. I've noticed a few people have been listening to the last chapters, and so I didn't want to wait any longer to get to the next one. And a couple people mentioned that they're really enjoying it, so even if it's just a few that are listening, I'd like to, do what I said I'd do and read my whole book eventually as I get to the next chapters. So this is chapter 7, A Ray of Hope. I had written Anne a letter informing her of my work and my saving up money to go to India, and actually wrote her that it's difficult to find a woman like her. I was surprised at myself how much I opened up to her. Then one day I received a letter that was sent from her parents' place. She wrote me that she had returned home after breaking up with Pierre. She mentioned something about having stayed with a hippie commune in the Jura for 2 weeks to sort things out in her mind. Now she had started work at the watch factory and would be looking forward to meeting me. That was certainly news that hit me like a lightning from the sky. When I called her parents' place, she wasn't in. Her mother said she would let her know that I had called. Like most evenings after work, I decided to go down to the lake. It was a beautiful early summer evening, and I thought I would watch the sunset. Some of my friends were there too, and we watched it together. Once again, I got this peaceful feeling that everything was going to be well. I had been there for about half an hour when suddenly I heard a voice behind me. "Bernardo, is that you?" I turned around, and there she was, even lovelier than when I had last seen her on Formentera. "Anne, I can't believe this. What are you doing here?" We hugged for a long time. "It's a complicated story, Bernardo." And she started filling me in on how Pierre had found another woman and she had moved out. She had no more money to stay on Formentera, so she had returned home. After work, she had decided to come to town to see if she would find me. I could not only see a reflection of the sunset in her dark brown eyes, but also a certain pain and sadness. "Sorry to hear about Pierre," I said. "It's best like that," she replied, because it had been a relationship that was partly based on convenience, as I was able to sell his paintings, and so he supported me. I didn't have to worry about money. "I don't know what to do next, but I don't want to stay here. My parents would be happy if I'd work in their business, but I don't feel called to do that." "I had been contemplating to visit you at your address," she said, "but then I decided to come down here to the lake in hopes that I might find you here watching the sunset." I was just thrilled to see her again. She went on to explain that after she had come back a few weeks ago, she had gotten involved with a Christian type of hippie commune near where she lived. One of her friends, who had been heavily involved with drugs, had gone there, and it seemed to have helped her somewhat. Anne felt a situation like that might help her sort things out after her breakup with Pierre. She had actually moved there for a couple of weeks. They had some kind of a leader or guru, and many of the things he said were quite wise, she said. But I noticed that everyone there had made him the center of everything, and all the rules for his community were made by him. Then one day I was listening to my Cat Stevens record, And one of the staff came and asked me to turn it off because they didn't listen to hippie music anymore. Well, Bernardo, as you can imagine, that was the end of my stay there. I was glad to hear that. I did learn some useful things about prayer though, and some of the people there were really nice. Maybe for some, especially for those trying to get away from drug addiction, it seemed to be important to have a regulated lifestyle for a while. I was just crushed after coming back because of this thing with Pierre and thought that staying with this community might help me. She needed to catch the last train, but we agreed to meet next weekend at the youth center. It was so good to see you again, Bernardo. We must see each other more. That was my idea too. I don't know what it was about Anne, but I felt such a warm feeling when meeting her again. I felt sad that she had gone through these sad experiences, but at the same time, I was also glad she was around. I was really looking forward to more time to talk and share more about the experiences we had had. I went to the youth center the next weekend. Some of my friends were there too, but this time I wasn't looking for them. My heart jumped when I saw her dancing. I had never seen her dance before, and my eyes were glued to her. There was an air of freedom in the way she moved her body, so sexy, yet not trying to impress, but just moving with the emotions of the music and expressing them through her body. I must have been watching her for about 10 minutes when the song ended and she went over to talk to some friends. But I could see she was looking around, probably for me. When she saw me, her eyes lit up and she came running right across the room and hugged me warmly. Bernardo, so nice you came. I wanted to see you. I have lots to tell you. We went to get ourselves a drink. I realized that you had some heartbreaking experiences, Anne. She looked at me and I could see a moment of appreciation. Yes, it wasn't easy. I hadn't planned on coming back. I would have preferred to stay on Formentera, but after what had happened, I just wanted to get away from Pierre and the situation. Now I just need time to see what I'm going to do next. I started explaining to her about my experience up on Mont Soleil a few weeks before. This is just amazing, Bernardo. I just knew you would find it because you were searching so hard for it. She had so much light in her eyes when she was excited about something. Yes, Anne, what you had told me was true, and I did really search for it. But I also know I need to keep searching for it because the connection weakens at times with all the daily affairs going on. She replied, I know. Right now I'm also a bit under all kinds of influences which make it rather difficult to keep that contact. It was amazing. She felt quite similar on so many issues. I had already felt very attracted to her before while she was still with Pierre, and now she was suddenly alone. That was a whole new ball game. I wasn't eager to jump into a relationship though, and she didn't seem to either. I wanted to concentrate on my spiritual link I had found, and if anything was going to work out in terms of a relationship, I was going to just let it come to me without pushing for it. But I really liked Anne. It was getting quite late, and Anne mentioned she would need to take the last train, as otherwise she'd need to wait for the first one in the morning. I offered her to sleep at my place. Okay, but just to sleep, she said, as she gave me a warm smile. You're going to meet Alice, I said. She looked at me in surprise, and I explained to her that Alice was my cat I had gotten a few months ago. You have a cat, Bernardo? I love cats and can't wait to see her. So she was, of course, on cloud seven to meet Alice, and I showed her around my place and the hippie commune as we went around looking for whoever was still awake. I put on a candle and some incense, accompanied by some Pink Floyd. I let her sleep on my bed while I slept on my thick floor cushions, which were almost like a bed too, with Alice next to me. We kept talking for another hour or so until we fell asleep. I remember thinking, just before drifting off, how I was so thankful that destiny had brought us back together again. The next morning I was up first and went to the kitchen, where I found Robert already up. We had a coffee together, and he told me he also had a young lady visiting in his room who was still asleep. So we decided to bring them each a coffee with some fresh croissants from the bakery nearby. Anne was so excited about it. That's so sweet of you. I totally enjoy waking up like that. It sure felt good to be so appreciated. Appreciation, I thought. How many people don't feel appreciated in this world? Who is there standing at the door of a factory and telling people after a hard day's work, thank you? End of chapter 7. So I'll leave it with that for now, and we'll get to the next chapter in a few days, and wish you all a good week. Thanks for listening.